My husband laughed when I said I was tired, then asked, "What's for dinner?" Would you believe me if I told you my marriage nearly fell apart over a single laugh? I know how that sounds. Ridiculous. Even impossible. Just a laugh? But I promise, by the end of this story, you'll understand exactly how one casual, careless laugh, followed by the simplest question, "What's for dinner?" cracked open 20 years of silence and forced me to face everything I'd been burying for so long. It was a Thursday. The kind of Thursday that feels exactly like every other day. School drop-off at 7:45 sharp. Emily's forgotten lunchbox rescued from under her bed. Carter's soccer cleats fished out from the bottom of the laundry basket. The Ring doorbell chiming with every Amazon delivery. By 10 a.m., I'd already been to Target and back, carting home enough snacks for Emily's Girl Scout troop and picking up the dry cleaning Brian never remembers to collect. I was still in my gym leggings, the kind that make it look like I might have actually gone to yoga, even though the closest I got to a workout was carrying 4 gallons of milk from the car to the kitchen. I'd answered emails from the PTA, RSVP'd to Lisa Johnson's wine and cheese night, and scheduled Carter's overdue dentist appointment, all before the dishwasher finished its first cycle. The house smelled like a mix of cold coffee and lemon disinfectant, my signature scent these days. I could hear the faint hum of the neighbor's lawnmower through the kitchen window and the TV from the living room, where Carter had left Blippi on pause. It was supposed to rain later, Texas thunderstorms in spring, the kind that rattle the windows and make you grateful for your sturdy roof, even as you worry about the gutters you keep forgetting to clean. I remember standing in the kitchen, looking at the clock, 4:36 p.m. The familiar dread was settling in. That window between after-school chaos and dinner, when everyone's hungry and tired, and the house seems to vibrate with impatience. Emily was at the table, coloring quietly but glancing up every few seconds, probably waiting for me to notice her new drawing. Carter was in the mudroom, banging his cleats against the tile, muddying everything I'd just mopped. My phone buzzed with a reminder. Pick up eggs, confirm baseball snack schedule. I hadn't sat down all day. The garage door rumbled open. Brian was home. I felt a flicker of something. Relief, maybe, or hope. Would he notice the way the house gleamed? The dinner already bubbling in the crock pot? The kids' homework lined up neatly on the counter? Would he ask how my day was? Or would he, like always, walk right past me, straight to the fridge? He walked in, briefcase slung over one shoulder, tie already loosened, phone to his ear. He mouthed, "Hey," to me, kissed the top of Emily's head, and disappeared into his office, still talking. I heard him laugh, his work laugh, the one that's slightly too loud, reserved for clients and bosses. I busied myself with unloading the dishwasher, stacking plates with one hand, scrolling through Facebook with the other. I saw Lisa's post, her kitchen spotless, her kids smiling, her caption, "Just another perfect Thursday." I rolled my eyes. 15 minutes later, Brian reemerged, calling out, "Babe, you seen my navy jacket?" I pointed to the coat rack, where it always was. He grinned, tossed me a wink, and said, "You're a lifesaver." Then, as if on cue, Carter started whining about a missing toy. Emily announced she needed cupcakes for school. Tomorrow, of course, and my phone buzzed again. I felt my chest tighten, a low-grade ache I'd come to ignore. It was around 6 when Brian finally settled at the kitchen island, scrolling through his emails, looking like he was still at work. I was chopping carrots, one eye on the stove, the other on Carter, who was now trying to balance a soccer ball on the dog's back. I don't know what made me say it. Maybe it was the way Brian kept sighing, or the way the kids seemed to orbit around me, always needing, always asking. I put down the knife, wiped my hands on a towel, and said quietly, "I'm so tired." For a moment, no one said anything. Brian looked up, eyebrow raised, a half smile on his lips. And then, he laughed. Not a cruel laugh, not even a big one. Just a little dismissive chuckle. Like I'd told him a joke he'd heard 1,000,000 times. And then, without missing a beat, he asked, "What's for dinner?" The The world didn't stop turning. The kids didn't freeze in place. The crock pot didn't explode. The house didn't collapse. But something inside me, something fragile and overextended, snapped. I just stood there staring at him. I don't even know what my face looked like. Later, I'd look in the bathroom mirror and wonder if I'd ever really seen myself before. There was a ringing in my ears. The hum of the dishwasher. The clatter of Carter's cleats. Emily's pencil scratching on paper. Brian's phone buzzing. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the carrots across the kitchen, to demand that someone, anyone, ask me what I wanted for dinner, or how I was feeling, or if I was okay. But I didn't. I just nodded, turned back to chopping, and said, "Chicken stew. It'll be ready in 10. I wish I could tell you that was the first time I'd felt invisible in my own home. But it wasn't. Not by a long shot. Let me back up and tell you about us. About me. About Plano, Texas. A place where the lawns are always green, the SUVs are always shiny, and every mom seems to have it together. Or pretends to, anyway. I'm Heather Mitchell, 38, stay-at-home mom, 2 kids, married to Brian for 17 years. We met at Texas A&M, back when I still dreamed of being a teacher. Back when Brian would bring me coffee in bed on Sunday mornings, and we'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. Back when I thought tired meant staying up late to cram for finals, or dancing until 2 a.m. at that bar on Main Street. I never planned on being a full-time housewife. I loved teaching, loved the chaos of 3rd grade, the way kids' faces lit up when they finally understood fractions. But after Emily was born, daycare costs didn't make sense, and Brian's job at the bank was taking off. We moved to Plano for his promotion, bought a house with a big backyard and room for a swing set, and I told myself I'd go back to work someday. Someday stretched into years. Our house is on Oak Street, a yellow 2-story with white trim and a porch swing Brian built when Emily was a toddler. There's a magnolia tree out front that blooms every April, and a mailbox I painted with the kids one summer, bright blue and covered in handprints. The garage is always full. Bikes, soccer balls, boxes of holiday decorations I never quite get around to sorting. Most days, I don't mind the routine. There's comfort in the predictability. School drop-offs, grocery runs, carpools to soccer and ballet, Friday night pizza. I like making things beautiful. Setting the table, lighting candles, baking cupcakes from scratch, even if they end up looking nothing like the Pinterest photo. I love my kids. I love Brian, even on the days when I wonder if he remembers who I am, apart from Mom and Honey and can you pick up my dry cleaning? But there's a pressure here, in this neighborhood, to be perfect. The moms compete over everything, whose kid is reading at the highest level, who brings the fanciest snacks to the bake sale, whose house is the cleanest. Lisa Johnson, across the street, is the queen bee. She runs the PTA, hosts monthly wine nights, posts daily on Instagram. Her house immaculate, her kids in matching outfits, her husband doting. Sometimes, I catch her glancing at my yard, at the weeds poking through the flower beds, at the toys scattered on the porch. I wonder what she sees. There's an unspoken rule here. Never complain. If you're tired, you're not working hard enough. If you're overwhelmed, you just need better time management. If your husband doesn't help, well, that's just how men are. Smile for the Christmas card, show up to every event, and never, ever let anyone see you crack. Brian used to see me. Really see me. When the kids were little, we'd steal moments together. Date nights at Olive Garden, lazy Sundays at White Rock Lake, inside jokes whispered after bedtime. But somewhere along the way, the jokes turned into jabs. "Mom life," he'd say at company parties, rolling his eyes as if to let everyone know I was the fun one, the one who kept things together at home. "She's got the real job," he'd say, laughing. But somehow it never felt like a compliment. I started noticing the little things. The way he'd forget our anniversary, not the big ones, but the odd years, the ones that mattered to me. The way his phone was always in his hand, even when we were supposed to be talking. The way he'd brush off my texts with a thumbs up or just leave them unread. I'd tell myself it was just stress, just the way life gets busy. But it started to feel like I was disappearing, like I was slowly fading out of my own story. I kept up appearances. I joined the PTA, volunteered for every fundraiser, baked the cupcakes, and coordinated the Teacher Appreciation Week. I organized Carter's soccer snacks, scheduled Emily's piano lessons, hosted book club even when I hadn't read the book. I posted the family photos, captioned with gratitude and hashtags, hoping that if I looked happy enough, I'd start to feel it again. But the truth was, I was exhausted. Not just physically, but in my bones. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. The kind of tired that comes from carrying everything, everyone, alone. That Thursday, when Brian laughed, I realized I couldn't remember the last time someone asked how I was. Not just, did you buy milk? Or, can you pick up the kids? But really, truly, how are you? I couldn't remember the last time I'd sat down for dinner without leaping up every 2 minutes to fetch someone a napkin or ketchup or a different fork because this one feels weird. I couldn't remember the last time I'd let myself admit that I was tired, that I was more than tired, that I was drowning. I wish I could say I confronted Brian right then, that I threw down my apron and demanded he see me, really see me, but I didn't. I finished making dinner. I set the table, poured drinks, called everyone to eat. I listened to Carter talk about his soccer practice, to Emily worry about her spelling test. I watched Brian swipe through his phone, barely looking up, asking about work, about bills, about the broken sprinkler I was supposed to call someone about. After dinner, I cleaned up while the kids watched TV. Brian disappeared into his office again. Just a few emails. I loaded the dishwasher, wiped the counters, made tomorrow's lunches. By the time I collapsed on the couch, the house was quiet, except for the ticking of the clock and the dog snoring at my feet. I sat there, staring at the dark window, my own reflection staring back at me. I thought about how easy it was to lose yourself, one day at a time. About how nobody notices until something breaks. About how sometimes it's not the big fights or the betrayals or the scandals that end a marriage. It's the tiny, everyday moments. The laugh, the question, the silence. But I didn't know the worst was yet to come. Because that wasn't the last careless thing Brian would say that week, not by a long shot. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. My alarm buzzed at 5:45 a.m., and I lay there for a second, hoping maybe Brian would stir and offer to make coffee, or at least say good morning. He didn't. He was already scrolling through his phone, checking emails, his face illuminated by the cold blue glow of the screen. I slipped out of bed, the hardwood cool under my feet. In the kitchen, I started the coffee maker and pulled out the kids' lunchboxes. The fridge hummed as I shuffled through drawers, assembling turkey sandwiches, apple slices, and tiny bags of pretzels. I cut the crusts off Emily's bread because she still hates them, even at age 10. I scribbled a silly note on a napkin. "You've got this. Love, Mom," and tucked it into her lunch. For Carter, I packed extra string cheese. He always shares them with his best friend Mason at the lunch table. By the time I had breakfast ready, the house was waking up. Carter padded in, hair wild, still clutching his stuffed dinosaur. Emily followed, already asking if I'd signed the permission slip for her field trip. I poured orange juice, set out vitamins, and coaxed them to eat. In the background, Alexa reminded me to pick up dry cleaning, sign up for the PTA bake sale, and email Carter's soccer coach about the rescheduled game. Brian finally came in, buttoning his shirt with one hand and eating a banana with the other. He didn't look at me, just asked, "Did you see my blue tie anywhere?" I bit my tongue, wanting to snap that his ties were exactly where he left them, crumpled on the back of the dining room chair. Instead, I found it, smoothed out the wrinkles, and handed it to him. He mumbled a thanks, already half out the door. After the usual chaos of school drop-off, Emily's backpack drama, Carter refusing to wear his jacket, the carpool line crawling along Main Street, I took a deep breath. The air was crisp, with that faint scent of cut grass and last night's rain. Plano in the spring is unpredictable. Sometimes you need shorts by noon, but this morning the sky was low and gray, promising more storms. I stopped at Starbucks on my way home, treating myself to a grande iced coffee and a blueberry muffin. The barista smiled and remembered my name. For 2 minutes, I felt like a real person again. Someone with an identity beyond Mom or Mrs. Mitchell. I sat in my car for a few extra moments, scrolling through Instagram. Lisa Johnson, my neighbor, had already posted a photo of her morning run and perfectly plated avocado toast. Blessed, a mom life. I rolled my eyes but felt the sting anyway. How did she always make it look so effortless? Back home, the house was silent except for the dog's nails clicking on the tile. I set down my coffee, pulled out my planner, and started my daily checklist. Laundry, bathrooms, vacuum upstairs, schedule vet appointment, order more Lysol wipes, call the HOA about the broken street lamp. I texted Brian to remind him about Emily's dance recital on Friday. He responded with a thumbs-up emoji. I stared at it for a second, feeling that familiar flicker of disappointment. By noon, I'd cleaned 3 bathrooms, stripped the beds, and started a load of towels. I listened to a true crime podcast as I folded laundry, hoping the narrator's voice would drown out the echo of my own thoughts. Every now and then, I'd catch myself wondering what Brian was doing. If he was in another endless meeting, or laughing at some meme his coworkers sent, or grabbing lunch with his assistant Jessica, who always wore those sky-high heels and perfect lipstick. The pressure to keep everything running smoothly felt heavier than usual. There was a bake sale coming up at Emily's school, and Lisa had already signed up to bring homemade macarons. I glanced at the sign-up sheet. Most moms had claimed the easy items: brownies, cookies, cupcakes. Only vegan, gluten-free, nut-free muffins were left. Of course. I typed my name next to them, hating myself for caring, but not wanting to look lazy. Around 2, my phone buzzed. It was Brian. "Mom's coming for dinner Sunday. She wants your lasagna." That was it. No please, no checking if I was free. Just an expectation. I stared at the message, feeling the knot in my chest tighten. Donna Mitchell, my mother-in-law, was a force of nature. She always managed to find a way to make me feel like I was failing at something: parenting, cooking, keeping house. And now, I had to host her, prep an elaborate dinner, and pretend everything was fine. I wanted to say no. I wanted to scream. Instead, I texted back, "Okay." Then I threw my phone on the couch and went to scrub the baseboards, because at least that was something I could control. As the afternoon wore on, the clouds thickened outside, the sky turning a bruised purple. I picked up Carter from soccer practice, his cleats caked in red mud. Emily climbed into the SUV, already complaining about homework. The drive home was a blur of sibling bickering and Taylor Swift on the radio. When we pulled into the driveway, I saw Lisa Johnson unloading her trunk, her kids helping her carry grocery bags. She waved, her smile just a little too bright. Inside, the kids scattered to their rooms. I started dinner, chicken enchiladas, because it was easy and everyone would actually eat it. I chopped onions, grated cheese, and tried to ignore the ache in my lower back. Brian texted that he'd be a little late. I didn't bother to reply. At dinner, the kids recounted their days. Emily aced her spelling test. Carter found a frog on the playground. Brian finally walked in, suit jacket slung over his shoulder, talking loudly on his Bluetooth headset. He mouthed sorry and took his plate to the office. I watched him go, feeling invisible. After dinner, I loaded the dishwasher, wiped down the counters, and helped Emily with her math homework. Carter needed a bath, and the dog tracked in more mud from the backyard. By the time the kids were in bed, I was running on fumes. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and pulled up a blank document. For weeks, maybe months, I'd been keeping a secret journal. Not a diary exactly, just a running list of every single thing I did in a day, every task, every moment that went unnoticed. I started that night's entry. Loaded dishwasher, packed lunches, answered teacher email, dropped off dry cleaning, scheduled Carter's dentist, picked up dog poop, reminded Brian about recital, ordered birthday gift for Emily's friend, signed up for bake sale, vacuumed stairs, made dinner, bathed Carter, helped Emily with homework. I stared at the list. It felt endless. I scrolled back through earlier entries, seeing the same patterns, different days, same invisible work. No one ever noticed. No one ever said thank you. I added another line. No one asked if I was okay. I closed the laptop and pressed my palms to my eyes, willing myself not to cry. I heard Brian's footsteps overhead, moving to the bedroom, the TV flickering on. I wondered if he'd even noticed I hadn't said goodnight. Sunday arrived faster than I wanted. The whole weekend was a blur of cleaning, grocery shopping, and prepping Donna's famous lasagna recipe, which she'd emailed me with a note. You always overcook it. Watch the oven this time. I tried to laugh it off, but it stung. I meticulously followed every step, even making homemade garlic bread. Brian was absent most of the day, running errands that mysteriously took hours. The kids squabbled and left Legos everywhere. By the time Donna arrived, the house looked perfect, but I was sweating and on edge. Donna breezed in wearing her signature Chanel perfume and carrying a hostess gift, a candle that smelled like expensive hotels. She hugged Brian first, then handed me the candle, her eyes scanning the living room. You've redecorated. It's cute, she said, her smile tight. Dinner was a performance. I poured wine, made polite conversation, and tried not to flinch at Donna's comments. When I was raising Brian, the house was always spotless. Or, you really let the kids watch that much TV? Brian laughed along, telling stories from his childhood, painting me as the fun but frazzled mom. I wanted to scream. After dessert, Donna pulled out her phone and started showing Brian pictures of his cousin's baby shower in Houston. I started clearing plates, stacking them quietly, trying not to be noticed, but also wishing someone would notice. When I returned to the dining room, I caught the tail end of their conversation. Donna's voice low, Brian nodding. She just gets overwhelmed, Mom. It's not like she has a real job, Brian said, his tone half joking, half exasperated. Donna sighed. Well, you know how women are these days, always needing something to complain about. In my day, we just got on with it. I stood there frozen, a stack of plates in my hands. My ears rang. I wanted to march in and throw the plates on the floor. Instead, I set them down quietly and walked to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. My hands shook as I sat on the edge of the tub, trying to breathe. I stared at the tile, counting the little cracks, willing myself not to fall apart. I could hear Donna's voice through the door, muffled but relentless. Heather is sweet, but she just needs to toughen up. Brian works so hard. I waited until I heard the front door close, signaling Donna's exit before I came out. Brian was already in the den, TV on, shoes off, scrolling through his phone. He didn't look up. I stood there for a minute, hoping he'd notice the red rims of my eyes, the way my shoulders slumped. He didn't. I climbed the stairs, shut the bedroom door, and pulled out my journal. I wrote down every word I'd overheard, every sting, every insult. I wrote until my hand cramped, the words blurring together. The next morning, I woke up with a headache. I moved through my routine in a fog. School drop-off, grocery run, laundry. I snapped at Emily when she forgot her water bottle, and at Carter when he tracked mud onto the clean floor. The guilt hit me immediately. I'd always sworn I'd never be that mom, the one who took out her frustrations on the kids. But I was so tired of holding it all together. That afternoon, I called my friend Brittany, hoping for sympathy. I told her about Donna's visit, about Brian's careless words. She laughed. Girl, at least you get to stay home. I'd kill for a day in yoga pants. You just need a spa day or something. I forced a laugh, but my chest felt hollow. Brittany didn't get it. No one did. That night, as I tucked Carter in, he looked up at me and said, "Why are you sad, Mommy?" I froze, my heart in my throat. I thought I'd hidden it so well. I smoothed his hair and told him I was just tired, that tomorrow would be better. But I knew something had to change. I couldn't keep going like this. Resentful, exhausted, invisible. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, saw the dark circles under my eyes, the worry lines etched deep. Who was I becoming? Was this what I wanted my kids to remember? As I crawled into bed, Brian rolled over and mumbled, "You okay?" I almost said yes, the automatic reply. But I couldn't. Not anymore. I lay awake for hours, listening to the wind rattle the windows, the distant sound of a freight train. I realized I'd been keeping my pain a secret, even from myself. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine, but I had no idea just how close I was to losing myself completely. Because the next thing Brian said would push me past my breaking point, and I was about to find out just how much a single careless comment can unravel your entire life. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, not because I was rested, but because my mind wouldn't let me sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to Brian's steady breathing beside me, the faint hum of the air conditioner, the gentle creak of the house settling. My body felt heavy, like I'd aged a decade overnight. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Brian, and padded quietly down the hallway into the kitchen. The world outside was still dark, the streetlights casting soft orange glows across our quiet slice of Plano. I stood by the window, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, and watched the slow crawl of headlights as the first commuters made their way down Oak Street. I could have stayed there forever, just soaking in the silence before the chaos began again. But my phone buzzed with the first of many reminders, a notification about Carter's soccer practice, an email from Emily's teacher about missing homework, a pop-up from the grocery app reminding me to reorder paper towels. I exhaled, long and shaky, and set the mug down. As I started unloading the dishwasher, the ache in my chest grew sharper. Every clink of a plate, every mug stacked, felt like another piece of me slipping away. Brian wandered in, hair mussed, still half asleep. He grunted a hello and headed straight for the coffee machine, scrolling his phone with one hand. "Morning," he mumbled. "Did you see my blue shirt? The one I wore to the conference last year?" I told him it was in the laundry room, and he didn't even look up as he said, "Thanks, babe. You're a lifesaver." That word, lifesaver, hit me like a punch. I wanted to ask, but who's saving me? Instead, I smiled, the way I always did, and went back to unloading the dishwasher. Breakfast with the kids was a blur of bickering, spilled milk, and missing shoes. Emily was sulking because I'd bought the wrong brand of yogurt. Carter refused to put on his cleats, insisting they smelled like feet. I was so tired my hands shook as I tied his shoelaces. "Mom, you okay?" Emily asked, glancing up from her phone. For a split second, I almost said, "No, I'm not okay." But I just forced another smile and said, "I'm fine, honey. Just tired." After I dropped them off at school, maneuvering through the endless line of SUVs and minivans, waving at the other moms in their Lululemon leggings, I sat in the car for a moment, letting the silence wrap around me. I could see Lisa Johnson chatting with the principal, her hair perfect, her smile wide and practiced. I wondered how she did it, made it all look so effortless. Did she ever feel invisible? Did any of us? I checked my phone. More emails. More reminders. The HOA had sent a notice about our mailbox being slightly crooked. The school needed volunteers for the spring carnival. Brian had forwarded me an article about easy weeknight dinners for busy moms, with a winking emoji. I wanted to scream. Instead, I drove to Target. Not because we needed anything urgent, but because it was the only place I could wander aimlessly without anyone questioning me. I pushed the red cart up and down the aisles, the bright fluorescent lights buzzing above me, the smell of popcorn and cheap plastic filling the air. I picked up a candle I didn't need, a new mug with the words "Mom Fuel," a bag of Carter's favorite goldfish crackers. I lingered in the book section, running my finger over the spines of novels I'd never have time to read. My phone rang. Brittany. I hesitated, then answered. Hey, girl. How's it going? She chirped, already in her gym clothes, probably on her way to Pilates. I tried to sound casual. Just running errands. You? Oh, surviving. Eric's traveling again, so it's just me and the kids. I swear, if I hear, "What's for dinner?" one more time, I'll lose my mind. She laughed, but it wasn't funny. I hesitated. Britt, can I ask you something? Do you ever feel, I don't know, like no one really sees you? She paused, just for a second. Honestly, all the time. But that's just mom life, right? At least you get to stay home. I'd kill for a day in yoga pants and no conference calls. She meant well, but her words stung. We talked for a few more minutes, about class parties and carpool drama, about who was bringing snacks to the soccer game. When I hung up, I felt more alone than ever. As I loaded my bags into the trunk, I noticed my hands trembling. Was this what burnout looked like? Was I just supposed to keep going until I broke? I drove home, passing the same manicured lawns, the same mailbox with the flag perpetually up, the same dog walkers waving politely. I pulled into our driveway, staring at the house I'd once been so proud of. The white shutters, the flower beds, the American flag fluttering in the breeze. It all felt like a set, a stage for a play I no longer wanted to star in. Inside, I dumped the shopping bags on the counter and glanced at the fridge, covered in school calendars, artwork, and sticky notes. One caught my eye, a note from Brian. Don't forget my mom's coming Sunday. Can you make that chicken thing she likes? I felt my chest tighten. Sunday. Donna, I'd almost forgotten. The rest of the day passed in a haze of chores. Laundry, vacuuming, scrubbing the bathrooms, answering emails from the PTA. I tried to sneak in a few minutes for myself, but the guilt gnawed at me. I should be grateful, I told myself. This was the life I'd chosen. That night, after dinner, I sat at the kitchen table with my journal. I flipped back through the pages, lists of chores, things I wanted to say but never did, moments when I felt unseen. My handwriting grew shakier with each entry. No one notices when I'm tired, I wrote. No one asks if I'm okay. I'm just supposed to keep going. I snapped the journal shut, my heart pounding. I couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change. But I didn't know how to change it. I didn't know where to start. That's when I heard Carter yelling from upstairs, "Mom, I need help with my homework." I closed my eyes, counted to 5, and forced myself up the stairs. The rest of the week blurred together. School drop-offs, soccer practice, endless errands. Each day felt heavier than the last. The only thing keeping me going was the knowledge that, at some point, something had to give. Saturday night, as I was prepping for Donna's visit, Brian came into the kitchen. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. "You okay?" he asked, his voice unusually soft. I wanted to melt into him, to let him take care of me. But I couldn't, not after everything. I stiffened, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm just tired." He kissed my cheek. "You always say that. You need to relax more." If only it were that simple. On Sunday, I woke up early to start cooking. I wanted everything to be perfect. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, Donna's favorite green bean casserole. I set the table with the good china, polished the silverware, arranged fresh flowers from Trader Joe's in the center. I even made a lemon pie from scratch, just like she liked. Brian was nowhere to be found. I texted him, no response. I called. Straight to voicemail. Donna arrived 20 minutes early, as always. She swept into the house, her perfume filling the air, her lips pursed in a tight smile. "Oh, Heather, you look tired. Is everything all right?" I gritted my teeth. "Just busy, Donna. You know how it is." She glanced around, taking in the spotless kitchen, the perfectly set table. "Well, at least you keep a nice home. Some women let themselves go after kids, but you've managed to hang on." Was that a compliment? I couldn't tell. Emily and Carter came bounding in, their energy bouncing off the walls. Donna immediately started in. "Emily, sit up straight. Carter, don't touch the pie." She offered me a tight smile. "You really do have your hands full, Heather. I don't know how you do it." Neither did I. Brian finally arrived carrying a bouquet of flowers. He handed them to Donna. "For you, Mom." I tried not to let it sting. Dinner was a performance. Donna talked about her book club, her recent cruise, her opinions on how easy women have it these days. Brian laughed along, chiming in with jokes about mom life and domestic bliss. I smiled until my cheeks ached, passing dishes, refilling glasses, making sure everyone had enough. When it was finally over, I started clearing the plates. Donna waved me off, saying, "You've done enough, dear. Let Brian help for once." She turned to Brian. "You do know how to load a dishwasher, don't you?" He grinned, tossing his napkin on the table. "Only if there's a manual." I forced a laugh, but inside, something snapped. As I loaded the dishwasher, I heard voices drifting from the living room. Donna's voice, sharp, insistent. "Honestly, Brian, I don't know how you put up with all this modern nonsense. Women these days expect so much. In my day, we just got on with it." Brian laughed. "Heather just gets stressed over nothing. She's lucky she doesn't have a real job." The words hit me like a slap. I stood there, frozen, hands buried in soapy water. My ears buzzed. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It was one thing to feel invisible. It was another to realize that the person you loved, trusted, didn't even see you. I dried my hands and went upstairs, locking myself in the bathroom. I pressed my palms against the cool marble counter, staring at my reflection. My eyes were red, my cheeks flushed. I didn't cry. Not yet. All I could think was, this is it. This is the moment everything changes. If you've ever felt invisible in your own home, hit like so I know I'm not alone. And subscribe, because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about my marriage. I stayed in the bathroom until I heard Donna leave. The front door slammed, her car engine revved, and then silence. I came downstairs to find Brian on the couch, watching football, a beer in his hand. He looked up, surprised to see me. "Hey, you okay? You disappeared for a while." I took a deep breath. "We need to talk." He muted the TV. "About what?" I sat across from him, knees pulled to my chest. For the first time in years, I let it all out. I told him about the exhaustion, the loneliness, the way I felt invisible. I told him about the journal, about the lists, about the moments when I almost walked out. I told him that his laugh, his jokes, his dismissals, they hurt more than he could ever know. He stared at me, stunned. I had no idea. I showed him the journal. I handed it to him, watched as he paged through my pain, my resentment, my fear. For a long time, he said nothing. Finally, he looked up, his eyes wet. "Heather, I'm so sorry. I never meant to make you feel that way. I thought you were happy. I thought you liked being home." I shook my head. "I gave up everything for this family, and I don't regret it. But I need you to see me. I need you to help me. I can't do this alone anymore." He reached for my hand. "You're right. I've been selfish. I've been so focused on work, on providing, that I stopped thinking about what you need. We need to do better. I need to do better." I wanted to believe him. Part of me did. But when I finally confronted Brian, what he said next made me question everything, even my own sanity. Brian didn't let go of my hand. He just held it, thumb rubbing along my knuckles, the way he used to when we were newlyweds and everything felt simple. For a second, I almost let myself believe that this moment, this raw, trembling honesty, was enough. But then he spoke, and the words sent a chill through me. "Heather, you know I appreciate you. I really do. But sometimes I wonder if maybe you're making things harder on yourself than you need to." His voice was gentle, almost pleading, but the implication landed like a slap. "I mean, Maybe if you didn't worry so much about what everyone else thinks, you wouldn't feel so overwhelmed. I pulled my hand away. My face burned. After spilling my heart, after exposing every invisible bruise, he was telling me it was my fault for caring too much? That I was the architect of my own exhaustion? The words tumbled out before I could stop them. So what? It's my fault I'm drowning? That I'm tired because I'm not doing it right? Brian ran a hand through his hair, frustration flashing in his eyes. That's not what I'm saying. I see how hard you push yourself for PTA, for the neighbors, for social media. You don't have to do all that. No one's making you. I wanted to scream. Did he honestly believe it was that simple? That I could just opt out of the endless silent competition that ruled our street, our schools, even our group texts? That if I stopped trying so hard, I'd be magically happier? I bit back my anger, but my voice shook. You have no idea what it's like. If I let one ball drop, people notice. If the house isn't spotless, if the kids forget their homework, if dinner is takeout too many nights in a row, it's not you they judge. It's me. And you know what? I'm tired of pretending like it doesn't matter. Because it does. It matters to Emily and Carter. It matters to our reputation. And yes, maybe it shouldn't. But it does. He looked at me, eyes wide and uncertain, like he was finally seeing the edge I'd been dancing on for years. But then he exhaled, slow and heavy. I get that there's pressure. I do. But Heather, I never asked you to be perfect. I love you. The kids love you. If you need help, just ask. I can start dinner, or order pizza, or fold laundry. But I can't read your mind. That stung, because it was true. I'd been waiting for him to notice, to just know, to step in without being asked. But maybe that was just as unfair as him expecting me to shoulder it all without complaint. I sighed, rubbing my eyes. It's not that easy. I don't want to have to beg for help every day. I want to feel like we're a team, not like I'm the project manager and you're the intern waiting for instructions. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the hum of the dishwasher and the distant thump of Carter's music upstairs. The air between us felt thick, heavy with all the words we'd never said. Finally, Brian broke the silence. I'm sorry I laughed when you said you were tired. I guess I didn't realize how deep it ran. I thought you were venting, not breaking. A tear slipped down my cheek. I was both. He nodded, shoulders sagging. Let's fix this, Heather. Tell me what you need. I wanted to rattle off a list. A real day off, a husband who notices when the milk runs out, kids who say thank you, a break from the endless grind of having it all. But in that moment, I realized I didn't just want practical help. I wanted to feel seen, respected, like my exhaustion was valid, not a character flaw. I took a deep breath. I need you to take some things off my plate, not just once, but all the time. I need you to be present, with the kids, with the house, with me. And I need you to stop making jokes about how easy my life is, especially in front of your mom. He looked ashamed. Deal. I promise. There was a long, shaky silence. I almost let myself believe that was the end of it, that we'd reached some kind of understanding. But then Brian said something that made the ground tilt beneath me. Heather, I should have told you this sooner, but things at work have been bad. Really bad. I'm worried I might get laid off. That's why I've been distracted, why I've been working late, checking my phone all the time. I didn't want to stress you out. I thought if I just held everything together, you wouldn't have to worry. I stared at him, stunned. All the resentment I'd been hoarding suddenly mixed with guilt. I'd been so laser-focused on my own pain that I hadn't noticed his. Hadn't asked why he was so distant, so tense, so quick to laugh things off. He kept talking, voice barely above a whisper. I've been scared, Heather. Scared that if I lost my job, I'd let you down. That you'd see me as a failure. I know I haven't been present, but it wasn't because I didn't care. I just didn't know how to say it. For a moment, we just sat there, two people tangled in our own silent battles, finally letting the truth spill out. I reached for his hand, this time with understanding instead of accusation. "We've both been carrying too much alone," I said quietly. He nodded. "I don't want to keep doing this, either of us pretending everything's fine when it's not." I squeezed his hand. "So let's stop. Let's talk to each other. Let's ask for help." We agreed, right then and there, to make changes. Real ones. Brian would start taking over dinner twice a week, no excuses. I'd claim a few hours every weekend just for myself. No errands, no chores, just me time. We'd split the school drop-offs and pickups, even if it meant rearranging his schedule. And most importantly, we'd start seeing a couples counselor. Not because we were failing, but because we wanted to do better. For ourselves, for our kids. It wasn't some magical, instant fix. In fact, the next morning, we both slipped into old habits. Brian checking emails at the breakfast table, me mentally running through my to-do list before I'd even finished my coffee. But when Carter spilled his orange juice and I started to sigh, Brian jumped up to help, handing me a fresh towel with a sheepish smile. Later that week, we sat the kids down and explained some of the changes. Emily, always perceptive, asked if we were getting a divorce. I hugged her tight and promised, "No, honey. We're just learning to be a better team." Carter, blissfully unaware, wanted to know if Dad was making dinner every night now. Brian laughed and ruffled his hair. "Not every night, buddy, but I'll give it my best shot." That weekend, for the first time in years, I took a Saturday morning just for me. I went to a yoga class, grabbed a coffee at Starbucks, and wandered through Target without a list or a deadline. It felt strange, liberating, but also a little sad. How had I let it get to this point? Why had I waited so long to ask for what I needed? When I came home, the house was messier than usual. Carter's soccer cleats in the hallway, cereal bowls still in the sink. But the kids were laughing. Brian was on the floor playing Uno with them, and for the first time in ages, I didn't feel a surge of irritation. I just felt grateful, maybe even hopeful. Over the next few weeks, things weren't perfect. Brian burned the chicken the first night he tried to cook. Emily forgot her backpack, and I resisted the urge to rush it to school for her. The laundry piled up, and I didn't fold it right away. But slowly, the weight I'd been carrying started to feel lighter, because I wasn't the only one holding it up anymore. The biggest change was in how we talked to each other. Instead of bottling up my frustration, I started voicing it, sometimes clumsily, sometimes through tears, but always honestly. Brian listened, really listened, instead of brushing it off with a joke or a shrug. And he started opening up about his fears, his stress, his hopes for our family. We kept going to counseling, even when it felt awkward or uncomfortable. We learned how to fight fair, how to apologize, how to forgive. We built new routines, weekly family meetings, Sunday pancakes, a standing date night once a month, even if it was just takeout and a movie after the kids went to bed. One night, after the kids were asleep, Brian found me in the kitchen, staring at the calendar, color-coded with appointments and activities, a monument to our busy lives. He wrapped his arms around me, rested his chin on my shoulder, and said, "Thank you, Heather, for everything. I see you. I really do." I turned to face him, tears prickling my eyes. "Thank you for finally listening." He smiled. "I'm still learning. But I want to get it right. I want us to get it right." I believed him. Not because he was perfect, or because all our problems had magically disappeared, but because he was trying. Because we both were. Looking back, it's wild to think that everything changed when I finally said, "I'm tired," and refused to apologize for it. When I stopped pretending I could do it all, and started asking for what I needed. When I stopped being invisible in my own life. If you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or just plain exhausted, I hope you know you're not alone. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say you're tired. And sometimes, the hardest conversations lead to the biggest changes. Now I want to know. Would you have confronted your partner or just kept going? Tell me in the comments which part of my story shocked you the most. And if you want more housewife confessions that will leave you speechless, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because next week, I'll tell you about the time my neighbor's secret almost cost me everything. Trust me, you do not want to miss that one. As I close this chapter, I realize I'm not just a wife or a mom or a project manager for my family. I'm Heather. I'm allowed to be tired. I'm allowed to be imperfect. And for the first time in a long time, that feels like enough.